idea that I've put thought into this is perhaps an optimistic one, but as you might imagine, you've been a topic of conversation on this campus a lot in the past week or so, certainly among a lot of us who discuss politics. And one of the things that sort of united people who like and dislike a lot of your ideas is that we appreciate your defense of free speech, and we appreciate you coming here to talk about it with us. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is Professor Van Dyke addressed the distinction between you and Jonathan Haidt. And you mentioned this as sort of a temperamental one. And I think, I'm sure that's true to some extent, but I noticed you've made a lot of more sort of substantively inflammatory claims. Like in the course of this lecture, you called the authors of Facebook posts demons and totalitarians. In past events, you've called them things like neo-Marxists, cultural Marxists. You've called them, I believe, a fifth column that is committing treason against the West. And it seems to me this is more than temperamental. This is a substantive difference. And
it's a substantive difference, yes.
And another thing you've done is that, unlike Haidt, you have a more sort of comprehensive political program. You've talked a lot in defense of traditional hierarchies, both of gender, of class, so on, though emphatically not of race. And so it seems that...
I haven't talked about defense of traditional hierarchies in terms of gender and class. That's not true.
Well, you've talked about hierarchies in society. You've talked about...
Yeah, that's true. I have done that. But I haven't justified them on the basis of gender and class. Whatever the two categories.
You talk
not
about,
okay. That's an important distinction.
Okay, but you defend hierarchies in society in a way that... You talk a lot about the Pareto distribution, yes?
That doesn't mean I defend it.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Jordan Peterson is like, bro, present your argument correctly, please. Because once you present your argument, then we can have a conversation. Don't keep on trying to wash it over as if I said that or I didn't say it. Look, if I didn't say it, then say I didn't say it. Ain't no okay. Dude, you putting stuff, inflammatory stuff out there that you're claiming that I stood for or said. Now you won't even stand by the fact that I didn't say it. Nah, ain't no okay, dude. Let's handle that right now before we move forward. All right? All right, so this one right here is going to be a good one because I very rarely see Jordan Peterson upset. And usually when he gets upset is because somebody deserves it.
Pareto distribution, yes?
That doesn't mean I defend it.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think you talk
Observing that something exists is not the same as defending it. How in the world...
Well, people attack it, right?
What's that?
And you don't. People attack it.
Attack
inherently, attack the hierarchies of society as inherently unjust, right?
Well, they're unjust, but they're also useful.
Okay, so you say they're useful. Some
well,
people would disagree
look at
with
it
that
this way.
proposition.
Okay, look at it this way. You obviously think that it's worthwhile to stand up and ask a question.
Yes.
So you think that standing up and asking a question is better than not standing up and asking a question.
Yes.
Okay, that's a hierarchy.
Yes.
Of values.
Yes.
Okay, without the hierarchy of values, you couldn't act.
Of course.
No, not of course.
Well, wait.
It's partly why I'm defending the hierarchy. Without a hierarchy, there's no impetus to act.
Hierarchy, right?
What's that?
There is a hierarchy in society, right?
No, there's multiple hierarchies in society.
Okay, there are multiple hierarchies in society, right?
Yes.
And you say that they are based in, you invoke the lobster, right? That they are based in nature.
Yes. I said that.
Speaking of the lobster, I need to go ahead and fix my my posture. Oh, let me show y'all what somebody sent me. Hold on one second. Oh. Somebody sent me the 12 Rules of Life, and they sent me the 12 More Rules of Life. Hard copy. So shout out to JB for that. Absolutely. I need to show y'all that because, yeah. They know that I'm really interested in knowing a lot more about this guy, Jordan Peterson, man.
They were inevitable.
Yes, that they were inevitable. Some people disagree with that.
That doesn't mean that they're good.
But my point is that, this is generally relevant to it, you have a broader point than free speech. This is one of the things you talk about, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Whereas I think there are some other activists who focus on more exclusively
I'm not
on
an
free
activist.
Speech. There are some other individuals who engage in public political speech. Okay.
Yeah?
Who focus more exclusively on free speech, whereas you have other goals in mind. But one of the things that your more inflammatory language, and it's fair, it's a substantive disagreement, has done, I think, is it's politicized this free speech to an extent that someone like Haidt hasn't. I've noticed that when someone hears the term free speech now, they associate it with a specific set of thinkers, often as viewed as on the extreme right. And I think I think arguably that's the problem of all factions in society, because free speech should be a universal value. Polls certainly suggest that it's coming under increasing threat from both sides. But I suppose the heart of my question, in addition to, of course, these other observations, is that do you believe free speech is your primary end, or do you believe these other points you're making are important? Because I've heard you a bunch of times defend free speech sort of contextually, like you've complained about some of the laws in Canada that you dislike, that they institutionalize false facts into the law. But it seems to me that an absolutist defense of free speech makes no preference as to true or false. The point is that something, you are being forced to say something. It would be as bad as if you were forced to say something that is true, because the point of free speech is that you can say whatever you want, right?
No.
Jordan Peterson is a great listener, man, because this young gentleman, very extremely intelligent young man that's talking to Jordan Peterson right now, has covered it. He's going around the barn to ask Jordan Peterson a question about free speech and his position on it, and I'm trying my best to keep up with what he's saying. But Jordan Peterson is looking at him, and he's paying close attention to every single thing that he says so that he can address what he's saying in the most tactful, direct manner so that he fully understands it and everybody who's within earshot can fully understand it. And that's something I'm working on. So it's extremely important that I hear conversations like this. Like the young man is teaching me a lot about communication as well. So yeah, kudos to him.
True, because the point of free speech is that you can say whatever you want, right?
No, the point of free speech is so that you can think your way through life without running headlong into a brick wall. But being told to think
position A versus position B is just as bad, right? Even if one is true and the other is not.
Okay, well, there was a bunch of questions.
Yes.
Good job, by the way.
Well, actually, wait, can I just ask
Good job.
one additional addendum? Which is, I think
he's super excited right now that Jordan Peterson showed him some love. He's giggling and all giddy and whatnot.
Politicization of free speech is by far the biggest threat to free speech, because this is always
the radical leftists are the biggest threat to free speech.
So this is
but I get your point.
The professor alluded to in previous questions, the substantive threats to free speech in much of the world, in Europe certainly, I think in the United States as well, from the government, have come from the radical right. And I think it's fair to say that on the specific narrow subset of certain departments on liberal arts colleges, it's fair to say a threat comes from the left, though its scope is in dispute. But my question is, do you think that the way you talk about free speech, the way you link it to specific issues, the way you use inflammatory language, and the way you seem to defend a specific set of free speech, there are certainly plenty of instances of free speech attacked on the other side that you don't mention as much. Do you think you risk politicizing this? Because it seems to me
yes.
that, okay, and do you not think that's a far greater threat? Because, for example, the NRA, the NRA is a group in the United States that defends guns rights, right?
Okay, hold it.
Hold it.
We need a question.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, like I said, you're doing fine, but it's just too much. Like, I can't keep it straight.
I told you, it's the youngin' is doing a whole lot. I see. I'm glad Jordan Peterson said it, because right now, you know, it lets me it lets me know that, you know, I'm normal. I might not be, but I'm more normal if this brother can say, you know what, there's just so much going on. Just need one question, please. It's just you give me a headache. Come on, brother. Just ask me one thing so I can answer that.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, you're doing fine, but it's just too much. Like, I can't keep it straight.
Do you think that your behavior risks politicizing it, and do you think that politicization is justified?
I think my behavior risks politicizing it, yes. I would rather it not be politicized. And I'm doing what I can to manage that risk. However, it's become political in my country because the government implemented compelled speech legislation. So I wasn't complaining about that before it became political. Now, and there is a time, even when you're detached in some sense from the political realm, that you can't be detached anymore. Well, I'm not happy with the fact that this has become politicized. You could say that I haven't done a stellar job in ensuring in every possible manner that this has remained neutrally apolitical. Probably true, you know, but I'm not particularly unhappy with the way things have gone so far. And I'm not happy with the radical left. And so if they're irritated at me, so much the better, as far as I'm concerned. So have I conducted myself perfectly? It's like, undoubtedly no. So I've got more than my fair share of faults, and a temper is one of them. But I'm muddling through.
So now I know.
That having a temper thing, that you missed me with that, bro, because I haven't seen him yet with a temper. I mean, I've seen him, you know, get a little stern with people. Well, I guess that's a temper.
So now I know there's much more to say, but I have some questions from the audience, so I'd like to read those, and I'll try again just to divide up the time in the questions, hopefully as fairly as possible. So Professor Peterson, let's start with you. So this question says, you present your issue with Bill C-16 to be that the infringement of freedom of expression regarding gender pronouns is a problem. Do you hold the same stance with other discriminatory language in the Human Rights Code, such as being able to use racist terms with regard to students? And if you believe that one of these things is a violation but not the other one, why? I'm not sure I read that out all that well, but you get the idea.
Okay, well, so one thing I would like to point out before I answer that, just so you all notice, is that I have in fact been denounced today. And what I am saying has, in fact, been described as hate propaganda. So one thing I'd like to suggest to you, every single person in the audience, you're next. So keep it in mind. All right, so with regards to the question, well, first of all, I don't think that these issues are the same. I don't think they're the same at all. I mean, I've been thinking about the pronoun thing, you know, because one of the things that people, it put me back on my heels for a while, because the claim was basically, well, it's something like, why doesn't the mean professor just play nice and respect people by using their pronouns? And it took me like 3 weeks to unpack that, because who gets questioned about pronoun use? I don't know why the hell I use the pronouns I use. I use them because they're part of the language. I use he and she because that's what everyone uses. And so then I had to think about, well, why do we in fact use pronouns? And
you know what? I was in a restaurant, and this happened to me a couple of times now. You will see somebody like a young lady, naturally young lady, dressed a little, you know, more masculine, and I have this thing where I like to show people respect. I say thank you, ma'am, thank you, sir, those type of things. And as soon as I said thank you, ma'am, I felt bad. Because it was like, did I address them properly? Did they want to be called ma'am? Did they want to be called sir? Did they want to be called nothing at all? Like, and all I'm trying to do is be respectful. So sometimes, I mean, and same thing with he, she. You got to be careful on just anybody, like anyone. Like when someone helped me out, and or if I'm talking about, you know, I don't understand all of that. So the fact that they actually made it a law in Canada, I would have probably been against it as well, because it's, and I get why people are fighting for that, but, you know, out of respect, you know, if they ask you to do it and you want to make sure that you're being respectful to them, or you just don't want to hurt their feelings or something like that, either call them what they're asking to be called, or don't call them anything at all, or call them by their name if you know their name. But if you got to take a stance, what he said to the people who are watching him right now is absolutely true when he said, "You're next."
Uses. And so then I had to think about, well, why do we in fact use pronouns? And we use them in part for the same reason that we use other categories, and that's to simplify the world for functional purposes, roughly speaking. But then I was thinking, well, is the use of he and she a mark of respect? And the answer to that is, well, no, it's not a mark of respect. It can't be a mark of respect. What you call 4 billion people can't be a mark of respect, right? It's a mark of basic categorization. And so then the claim comes up, well, if someone wants you to use a particular pronoun, then you're disrespecting them if you don't. It's like, okay, let's think that through a bit. Well, that assumes that when I'm using he or she for people in normal parlance, that I'm actually indicating my respect for them. And that's not true. It's like, if I don't know you, I classify you generically, and basically I classify you in terms of how you present yourself publicly. I suppose that's your gender expression. and then I nail you with whatever pronoun seems to fit. It has nothing to do with respect. And besides that, you bloody well don't get to demand my respect. Why should you? You know, I mean, it's not like I respect everyone. That's a foolish thing to do. You respect people who are respectable. You know, you make value distinctions between people, and that doesn't mean you illegally discriminate against them. Those aren't the same thing. But I'm all for value judgments. If you
earn respect, you're supposed to earn respect, and you earn respect by giving respect. When you give respect, you 9 times out of 10, you give it enough, you'll receive respect back in return. You can't just go around demanding respect from people. You're going to respect me. Why? Don't even know you. Why should I respect you? What is there to respect? We haven't even had a conversation yet. So I generalize you with what you come off to me as. You come off to me as a female, I'm going to generalize you as a pronoun that I deem to be innocent, and that's he or she. So once you hear me say that, now you can approach me and say, in a respectful manner, asking and not expecting that the outcome should be exactly what you want it to be. Because with any question, the answer is not going to come back the way you want it all the time. I might very well say no. And the only thing you can say, well, at least I asked. At least I asked.
Discriminate against them, those aren't the same thing. But I'm all for value judgments. If you don't buy value judgments, then why bother learning anything? Why bother doing anything? Why go from one point in your life to another if the next point isn't better in some manner?
Right. That's right.
So don't tell me that I'm not respecting people when I don't use their gendered pronouns. And the other thing is, I don't buy this whole idea that the people who are putting this legislation forward are valid representatives of the trans community. That's what they say they are. We have mechanisms for deciding whether someone's a valid representative of a community, and that generally involves democratic voting. I've received at least 20 letters from transsexual people who are on my side, and by the way, 0 from others, believe it or not, who are perfectly happy with the idea of gendered pronouns. It's just they want to be the other one. Now, you can have a discussion about that, and there's lots of things to be said about it, but the idea that this community that's coming out and demanding these rights is somehow representative of this homogenous oppressed minority, I think is rubbish.
You know he upset when he used words like rubbish. And I received a super long email from someone talking about this whole transgender thing. I need to go back, find it, and respond, because they included a bunch of researched facts and all these things. And since I'm not very well versed with it, you know, anything I can say is thank you so much for supporting the channel. I appreciate you reaching out. I'll try to, you know, gain a bit of knowledge on this and get back to you when I can. But essentially, they would just let me know, stop giving Jordan Peterson a platform because he's disrespectful to our community, and this is why. So, you know what I mean? And it was an extremely long email, but it seemed to be very well written, very well researched, and yeah, so people assert themselves as the person representing a group when they feel like nobody else within their earshot has done it first, has taken up for them first. If they feel like it's passionate enough to step out there on the battlefield and fight for it, that's what they do. And you know what? I ain't got no issue with that. I didn't look. I'm just learning some things through Mr. Jordan Peterson. So as long as they approach me respectfully, I would do the same for them. That's just with anything. But I know he wants the same from people as well. Like, he has a bunch of people who was for it. Like, they didn't find an issue with it. So, yeah.
How representative of this homogenous oppressed minority, I think, is rubbish.
Well, that leads us to our next question. And for this question, I'm going to ask both Professor Kosman and Professor Bryson to comment on it. So one of the objectives of the transgender and queer rights movement is to enter into public conscience in a way. And this person asks, this can only occur through public conversation. Do you worry that it may not be possible to have thoughtful discussion if there is government restriction about this kind of speech? And do you worry that it would skew discussion in one direction or another? So perhaps Professor Kosman first, and then Professor Bryson.
So I've spent a career being concerned about the way in which thoughtful discussion is often shut down. And I've been concerned about it on the right, I've been concerned about it on the left, and I've been concerned about it in the mushy middle. And I think that Professor Peterson has actually performed some of this today, insofar as he just said that he was denounced here today and that they're going to come for you next. So the thing is about speech is that everybody gets it. And you say something and you then get criticized. So Professor Peterson hasn't been denounced, some might want to, but he has been severely criticized. And that is actually what speech does. That is what speech does.
All right. So this one right here says, no, speech is communication, the transmission of ideas. And what she said, he has not been denounced. Someone wrote, I guess the person that's responsible for this video, True Americans News, says, yes, he has read a dictionary, so he knows what denounce mean. So, all right. So they're saying that Jordan Peterson need to stop crying because people are doing nothing but practicing their First Amendment. Is that what they're saying?
But he has been severely criticized. And that is actually what speech does. That is what speech does. I think that there is an important way to have public discussions about whether the Supreme Court of Canada is right or not right. About whether the Supreme Court of Canada is right or not right in upholding its constitutionality. But I would like to have that debate with someone who is knowledgeable about the law.
Thank you. And Professor Bryson.
One of the big questions that I had to deal with in considering whether or not to accept the very generous offer, invitation of the University of Toronto to come here today would be the impact of this event on trans and gender non-binary people, specifically at the University of Toronto and much more generally. And so, whereas I would say that I recognize practices of peer review, and practices of peer review are not denouncement. Practices of peer review are practices that we utilize to make assessments about knowledge claims, whereas I would fully appreciate being able to enter into a discussion about gender and gender identity and issues around trans culture as a means of practicing peer review. I think the difficulty that we've had, and we've managed to reproduce this difficulty here today, characterized just now by Dr. Peterson as simplifying the world for functional purposes. Simplifying the world for functional purposes is not what I recognize to be academic practice. This is not how we relate to knowledge. And so I think that there's a concern when we don't subject claims that are being made as knowledge claims by people who carry titles at great Canadian universities, when we don't treat those knowledge claims in the same way that we would in any other field. And when they're knowledge claims made about members of minority groups, embattled, vulnerable, marginalized members of minority groups, then I think that we all need to be very concerned about how it is that we're changing what we think we do in the university, which is supposed to be about the advancement of knowledge and excellence.
Yeah, I appreciate that right there. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this in the comments below. And if you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I'm Van. Now we are all the LFR family. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside the Patreon as well. Jordan Peterson held his own. The young man that was presenting the super long question, he did a great job too. The other people on the panel, you know what I mean, I have to look at it again to see, but I really didn't see the point. But I'm certain that they had a point to be on the panel. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Sometimes I just am. So I don't know what to say. But I'll see you on the next video, hopefully inside the Patreon. Love y'all. Bye.